My name is Won Ju Lim. I'm a visual artist working with sculpture and installation, using oftentimes light and shadow in my work. I'm from Los Angeles.
My name is Jan Tumler. I'm an author and teacher. I write mostly about art, and I'm based in Los Angeles as well.
I've been making sculptures and installation for 25 years. I often use light and shadow in my work. I like the ephemeral aspect of this material. I often, I started actually with using video projections onto sculptures and used transparent materials. But I never really thought about it as a medium or material that I could do research on. And so through this project, I'm learning a lot more about the history of shadows, meeting people that have been working with this for a really long time in performance and in theater and in plays. And my objective is to produce an essay film. I'm sure this is something that I've read in different literatures and maybe different history and theory books, but I'm very much interested in thinking about the shadow as my first other, my first friend, my first me who is also not me, my first other who is not another's other, that is also me and not me at the same time. It's not specific to memory, let's say, but in some ways, the medium itself is like the medium of memory. If memory were to articulate itself visually in this world, I imagine it's not necessarily like a shadow, but it acts very much like the way light interacts with object that then becomes a shadow that comes in and leaves, that could superimpose, that becomes other shapes and back to its own shape, that's constantly ephemeral or changing all the time, much like memory. And so it seems to be some kind of a relationship, and maybe a shadow might be some kind of a visual articulation of how memory might exist.
I am probably Won Ju's assistant in this project, but I could glorify my role by saying I'm also a collaborator. This is a subject of mutual interest to both of us. I think I, too, have long been interested in the shadow and really coming to it maybe more from the angle of narrative and folklore, as we discussed a little bit. I'm very interested in the idea of the shadow as it relates to representation in a very fundamental way, as a almost primordial representation of the subject or the self, but equally one that's highly complicated because it can always turn back against the subject, and has done so in narratives across time, across the globe. The shadow always has a slightly mischievous, even potentially evil aspect at times. So that's my investment in it. I think I'm going to be helping her with the writing process because there will be some language involved in the film. And equally, right, we're both interested in montage and the whole process of putting together a film, of editing, cutting something together. So I'm here really to give support to my wife. That's what I'm doing. What stood out for me was the very complex way that the museum integrates these puppets into a larger narrative, again, that bears on many facets of human experience. there's a it's underpinned by a motive to collect and preserve aspects of these puppets and to thereby put them on show and keep them visible in everyday life. It also has a broad kind of agenda of connecting cultures across the globe by way of a common practice, which is puppeteering. And then finally, the part that was most surprising to me is this use of the puppet in psychotherapy as a therapeutic device, which is not at all unrelated to the other ones, but is a kind of addendum that I wasn't expecting, and that really fills out the program in a way that makes it very compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also love how broad it is, both culturally and historically. You have puppets from China. I've never heard of puppets from Vietnam and puppet play in Vietnam. Or you have all these different kind of narratives that come from Turkey and Indonesia and all sorts of places around the world. That this is a comprehensive collection. That was very impressive. I also love the use of materials in different puppets and how the materials bring specific personalities to these individual puppets. The one that I love the most, of course, is the snake mermaid lady that hangs from the top. And she is going to, because she's made out of foam, I don't know how many years she may have left. And I really like that, that it's not, that she's not something that will live forever, that as her material dies, she will also have mortality through the material. And that to me was very special.